everyone, thank you for joining us for the video. I am here with Father Leon Pereira. We are in finally the sunshine here in Holy Week at Medjugorje. And Father, thank you very much for your time. I know it's precious. We've already had a good chat pre-video, which has already got me in a good place, thinking of the wisdom that you have to impart to us. I just want to begin maybe by asking to share a little that I know I've heard you share before to pilgrims. How did you come to Medjugorje? How did that all begin? What's your relationship in terms of how it led you here?
Okay, I grew up in Singapore, and I had a lot of questions about the faith. I grew up in a very devout family, Indian Catholics. Prayed the rosary, and I remember we used to have the novena of Our Lady of Fatima. The statue of Our Lady of Fatima would come to our homes for 9 days at a stretch, and all the neighbours would gather and pray, and then move to the neighbour's house, and we'd all go to the neighbour's house, etc. So all these things were entirely normal to me. We had the perpetual novena at what's now called the Novena Church. It's actually the Church of St. Alphonsus Liguori, and no one remembers that. That's the real name of the church. They just call it Novena. Even the local tube stop is called Novena. The whole area is renamed Novena. So because every Saturday something like 16,000 people or 20,000 people descend on that area and go to the Novena. Most of them not even Catholic. So the practice of the faith was not alien to me. As a child we went to confession, I don't know, maybe 3-4 times a year at least. That was normal. It's normal for most people, I think. But I wasn't really taught the faith. So in my late teens, I fell in with a group of evangelicals who tried to turn me away from the faith. They were very much against devotion to Our Lady and the saints. And I can't remember if they mentioned indulgences, but I certainly didn't understand that at all. I just thought that was bizarre at the time. And tried to turn me away from the Eucharist, and the papacy and all that, the usual. And they weren't wicked, they just had good intentions. But when you're a poorly catechized Catholic, you really have no defenses at all. And I would say most Catholics in my situation at that time were fairly poorly catechized. But maybe they were more devout than me, so they were less vulnerable. And what brought me back was actually Medjugorje. At the age of 17, I heard about Medjugorje. There was a talk going on in Singapore every Saturday. There was a couple, Victor and Vivian Wee. That's their name, they're Chinese. Okay. And they tirelessly, for years, gave this talk about Medjugorje. And every Saturday, about 2,000 people would come. And then, and people would get excited, they'd bring their friends and family to come and hear this talk, and it would just spread. Lots of people were evangelized, I think, through it. The church in Singapore has certainly changed at the time. In the late 80s and early 90s, it was transformed because things like people started praying the rosary again, devoutly. Adoration, there's a huge emphasis on adoration. And in Singaporean culture, we're mostly Chinese. We have this thing we call kiasi. It means something like keeping up with the Joneses. Mm-hmm. Literally scared to lose face, And so when one parish introduced 24-hour adoration, every parish had to have that because you couldn't lose face in Chinese culture. So it spread all over the island, and the church was transformed. Really, and confessions. There was a huge emphasis on confession again. So we started to go once a month as a confession. And this was all because of Medjugorje. But for me, what happened was when I heard this talk, it was really the way they spoke about the Eucharist that struck me most and brought me back to the faith. And so I'm forever grateful to Medjugorje for that. I remember even at the time, people were asking me, so I was 17, 18 years old. They were asking me, well, what if the church rules against Medjugorje? And I said, well, I'll forever be grateful to Medjugorje, but I'll be obedient to Holy Mother Church. So I'm surprised that I had that wisdom back then as a teenager, but I remember I certainly said that, and I think that itself was a fruit of Medjugorje, that spirit of obedience, I think. Because where Medjugorje is not an end in itself, it's leading you to Jesus. I sometimes meet pilgrims who come and say, you know, Father, I feel bad because I don't believe in Medjugorje. Well, I say, well, do you believe in Jesus? You know, thank God you do, because that's the whole point.
Yeah. It kind of, I think I can relate to first coming to Medjugorje. It was the fruits back home, the prayer groups, other people telling stories of their own experiences, testimonies, and that just fueled this growing love for me, as I could see with many people as well at different times. And I think that it does fan the flame being here, but again, I think it goes back to what you were saying about the mode. That's where people are at. But I think as time goes on and repeated visits maybe, and just kind of allowing the Holy Spirit to lead you, things become calm, but become deeper. And maybe you look back and wonder, was that correct and now we're wrong, or you're longing for that emotion again or something. But I think the journey's there, that spiritual maturity. Would you think that would be fair to say?
Yes, I think if you're open to Jesus, coming to Medjugorje, there's something, I'm convinced that something will pervade your soul and you'll be aware of it. Something good, that is, something holy. There's a peace here that people talk about that's sort of in the atmosphere, you know? And if you're open to it, it just kind of enters you by osmosis or something.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I've been to Lourdes many, many times, and I love Lourdes. And but I've never experienced the same sort of thing at Lourdes. And you can have good and bad pilgrimages anyway. And in Lourdes, you know, you really have to focus on the essentials. You know, I remember one year being fed up of having bad pilgrimages to Lourdes. So I thought, I'm going to commit myself, you know, I'll go to the baths, I'll drink from the water, I'll eat some of the plants, you know, like Bernadette. I don't think it's not written down that you have to do those things, but I did. Went to the adoration tent every day, and that was a good pilgrimage. But it's different somehow, the atmosphere. You know, like the masses there, you just arrange your own masses and go off. And it's the evening procession that sort of brings everyone together, but even then it's only certain language groups on a given day, you know. And you wouldn't do the procession every evening, necessarily. So it is a very different atmosphere from Medjugorje. Medjugorje, again, you can do your own thing, but in the evenings, everyone, whatever language you speak, you all come together for adoration or veneration of the cross or whatever it is, you know. And if you're having Mass, it's according to your own language group. You know, with Spanish, you have Spanish, but all the Spanish speakers are together, you don't have your own Masses here and there. I think that makes a difference. But those are surface differences. There's still something else. There's something else going on in Medjugorje. I know people who, the opponents of Medjugorje, some of them, you know, are trying to be fair. I suppose they say it's, I don't know, it's a feeling, a little pick-me-up or something. They're saying that because they haven't been here. It's not an emotional thing. It's something deeper. Because of its emotions, for heaven's sake, you know, that's silly.
Yeah. Emotions
come and go. And you can't live on your emotions, and the faith is not based on emotions. This is something at a much deeper level. And I think it certainly frightens some people. They're frightened that they'd experience this. But a lot of other people are open to it.
Yeah, I consider myself, I'm very much open to it, because especially being back for the first time in a few years, in August just last year, I left with such renewed conviction, not just of Medjugorje, but of the faith. And it's all or nothing, but it was so strong. It's all or nothing for Jesus, for God. And like you, I loved Lourdes, I love Fatima. I've been there. Fatima was what I call the first love of the Marian apparitions for me since a young boy watching the movie at my grand's house. And I've been to Garabandal before as well. There are other ones that I'm aware of, but as much as I got something from those pilgrimages, Medjugorje does do something in the heart that it just gives it the crown in terms of what's there, the Holy Spirit, you know. And why do you think Medjugorje is different? Because one thing I've noticed recently as well that's come to mind is Our Lady did always accompany some messages with a lot of warnings, you know, if you don't change, like Fatima, if you don't change, here, this is what may come, the second wars, all this stuff. But with Medjugorje, you could draw the line through it, and Medjugorje is on itself, and it's the messages. I know we have the secrets, but they don't get any attention. Mariana gave very little attention in her book. The focus is always on the messages. When she says, "My Immaculate Heart will triumph here," this is the fulfillment of Fatima, paraphrasing it. What is it she's doing? What is it she's preparing us for? What is that triumph that all depends on these messages?
There was an African priest with me a few years ago. This is when I myself was coming here as a pilgrim. It's about 10 years ago maybe. And we were sitting in, you know, the rotunda outside with the outside altar. And he looked out, and adoration was going on. It was night, it was dark. And the only thing lit was the monstrance. And there were about 10,000 people kneeling down in silence outside, because I think the benches, it's about almost 8,000, but you know, when there's overspill, so estimate about 10,000 people. They were kneeling in silence. And the priest said to me afterwards, he said, "Now I believe in Medjugorje," because I saw that. And I would tend to agree. I think it's those kinds of things that are more convincing for me. When I first came, I remember, I first came here when I was a teenager, well, just out of my teens. I was 20, and I was in the army. I was in national service at the time. In Singapore, we still have national service. And so I heard about rosaries turning to gold, and I think, I certainly heard about the so-called miracle of the sun here in Medjugorje, and about people smelling roses. At the time, I didn't dare to believe that I would be worthy to see any of these signs or experience any of them. And I thought it was probably tempting the Lord, so I didn't go looking. But I have to admit, even that first time here, I saw the so-called miracle of the sun. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I just thought I was losing my mind. It was it seemed to happen at the apparition time. At that time, the visionaries were going into the choir loft for the apparition. And this is just to show you my naivety, you know. So I was outside, we were all this huge crowd praying the rosary. And then we would pause, you know, at the time of the apparition, around 5:40, I think. And the apparition is preceded by 3 flashes of light. And I looked up and I saw these 3 flashes of light going through the stained glass windows. And my naivety is I just thought everyone could see it. I just thought it was like normal, it was daily, it happened every day. I just thought everyone saw that. I didn't realize not everyone saw this. And then, you know, after the apparition, we were outside, and this lady, my friend's mom, she said to me, "Leon, can you see the sun?" I thought, "You're mad, you'll go blind." But she made me look, and yes, I saw things that did not make sense physically or physiologically. You know, really, you should go blind. Your retina should be burned by that stage. But I remember the very first time I saw it, it's like a white disc in front of the sun. It reminded me of the host. So I thought, I mean, even now I think that's maybe that was the meaning of this miracle of the sun. It's telling you, stop looking at the sun, go to adoration, focus on Jesus. But it wobbled and threw out these colors, all sorts of colors, and then it split it turned into a purple sun, and the whole sky became lime green, and all the clouds became silver and embossed. You know, it was the strangest thing. And then the purple sun split into 3 purple suns, and then 4 in the shape of a cross, and then 7 in a straight line, except the second one was out of alignment. And I remember that because I was thinking, my own kind of OCD, I was thinking, that's not right, you need order. And then from 7 to 5, you know, I have no idea what these things are meant to mean. I suppose that some numbers, these are biblical numbers, they're very Catholic numbers: 3 for the Trinity, 4 for the Gospels, you know, 7 for the sacraments, 5 for the wounds of Christ, or, you know, but that's an interpretation you're laying over this. And then the purple suns would fuse together back into one purple sun, and then throw themselves out. You know, it was the strangest thing. It didn't make any sense. Physically or physiologically, it did not make any sense. But I witnessed that on my very first trip here. I have to admit, this is one of the rare times I'm actually speaking about it. I don't normally talk about that because I don't think it's terribly important. I think the sign of that was treasure what is holy, treasure above all the Eucharist, you know, and go to Jesus and stop looking at the sun.
Yeah,
that's not an end in itself. As I tell people, you know, signs and wonders, the definition of a sign is that it points to a destination. It's not the destination itself. The destination is Jesus. Go to Jesus.
Yeah, definitely. I know you've spoken publicly often to pilgrims about some experiences you've had, even before you were a priest or since you've been a priest here in Medjugorje. Would you be alright to share that?
What did I say? The rosary is turning to gold. I've never had my own personal rosary turn to gold, but then mine are made of, you know, this paracord kind of material. So
Nice and strong.
Yeah.
You spoke in the hall last August to the crowds. I was there. You spoke about your own visitor that you had in the pension, and then later on you had a better visitor.
You want me to talk about that, do you?
If you want to, it's up to you. I'm only asking because I know it was public domain, so I know it's...
Yeah, I'm sure there are multiple versions out there of me repeating that story, you know, people recording me. Yes, on that very first trip when I was 20, I did on Tuesday, the 10th of September, that in the evening, I saw something standing at the foot of my bed. It was sort of transparent, you know, like a OHP transparency, you know, if you held that up, you know, so you'd see it, but at the same time you could see through it, but it was there. And I just thought it was my imagination. I closed my eyes and I looked back, it was still there. And it was a figure in matte black who was shirtless, very muscular, very strong, but with the head of a bull with 2 tiny horns and human eyes. They were forward-facing eyes, you know, cow eyes go all over the place, right? But these were forward-facing eyes, and they were blood red. And this thing was angry and staring at me and clenching its fists. And honestly, when I saw it, I just thought, it's your imagination. You want to see something, so you've conjured this up in your mind. But I was thinking, why would I conjure something so weird and scary? I said the prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel. Fell asleep. And the next morning, my friend Kevin came to get me at 3:45 in the morning because we were going to climb Cross Mountain, Križevac, the big mountain in Medjugorje. And he wanted to be at the summit before sunrise. That's why we had to leave so early. And he'd been woken up by a strange grunting sound. 3 grunts, one outside the house, the second grunt outside his window. He was on the 2nd floor. 3rd grunt in the middle of his room. And the 3rd grunt was then followed by a sinister laugh. And that spooked him greatly. And he came and found me. And I saw it, I mean, he's Chinese and he has rosacea, but he was extra pale, you know, he looked very, very spooked. And he told me what he had heard. So I told him what I'd seen the night before. And between the two of us, without mutual stories, I think it scared us. We even thought, why bother going up? But because it was pitch black, there was only one street lamp in Medjugorje near the church. There's nothing else. And we thought, should we bother? And we remembered that Our Lady had said, when you pray the Apostles' Creed, the devil's forced to run away from you. Now, that's what we were told that she had said. I don't know if she actually said that here. I've never found it in any message, but in those days I remember hearing that from someone. So we prayed the Creed. And when we prayed the Creed, a light appeared on that mountain, on Križevac, where the cross is. And we walked towards it, praying the rosary. So the Creed was the beginning of our rosary. We prayed all 15 decades by the time we got to the mountain, because where we were staying was very far away, near Mother's Village, one of the Ostdeutsch family houses. So the distance from there to the church is about the same as from the church to the mountain. I think so. And so when we got close enough to the mountain, we could see what this light was. Now, still, as the crow flies, we must have still been a good distance away, at least 300 meters, I think, as the crow flies. But it felt like we could see a lot closer. And this light, this orange, golden, beautiful light, was in the shape of a young lass. Petite, small, smaller than me, and younger than me. So I was 20 at the time, but this lass, I would have said she was about 16. I'm not very good at estimating ages, I think, but about 16 maybe. And she was wearing a dress, a very simple dress, and stood with her palms open on either side like this, and was watching us. She was alive, and she had a veil on her head which hung straight down. I say that because you could see the outline of her shoulders. She had square shoulders. They weren't broad, but they were square. It kind of stood out in the darkness. It's the opposite of a silhouette. It's like a light silhouette. And I remember that because I was looking at her, and I remember my exact thoughts at that moment. I was looking, thinking, oh, you work out, whoever you are, you should look pretty strong. And we had no idea who she was. We just couldn't believe we were watching this, and we could hardly speak to each other. And I think I remember I was in tears, and I think Kevin was. I didn't look at him. I don't think he looked at me. And after a while, we decided to climb the mountain so that we could catch her at the top and ask her, "Who are you?" And there's the stations of the cross all the way up to the top, and somewhere around station 10 or 12, I forget which one. I'll remember if I go up again and see it. You have a clear view. On the left, you can see the other hill, Apparition Hill, which is about a third of the height of Cross Mountain.
Yeah.
And there's a place you can see clearly now. It's marked by a marble statue that the Koreans donated 23 years ago to mark the place where Our Lady appeared on the second day, 25th of June, which was the first day for the visionaries as they are now together. So in those days, back then in 1991, it was just a cleared patch of ground. Everyone was taking soil from where Our Lady stood, for the sick and all that. And this same young lass was standing there on that same spot, but this time facing the church and the village, with her hands in the same position. So we realized we picked the wrong mountain because she'd moved. And we got all the way to the top, and there was a couple from Florida, Tallahassee. And they were in their 60s. I was suspicious. I kept looking around them to see if they had any lighting equipment. They had just an elderly couple with nothing with them, just they were praying the rosary. And they'd been there from about 4 o'clock. And they said they had seen nothing. We didn't tell them what we had seen. We couldn't talk about it. We just said vaguely that there was a light, a strange light on the mountain. And they looked astonished, but we didn't offer any more information. We just couldn't talk about it to anyone except with each other for a long time. And then we came down from the mountain and went into the church. After we'd said our prayers, etc., we went to the church. to say some more prayers, and Kevin was taking pictures. There was a Franciscan there watching Kevin, Father Petar Ljubicic. He was watching Kevin, wondering, who is this Chinese dude? What's he up to? And I went to stand facing the statue of Our Lady. And I wasn't even praying, I was just thinking, what was that all about? Who was it? Did I imagine it? Then again, Kevin saw her, did we both imagine it? You know, can you have mass hysteria with just two people? Apparently you can. While I was thinking all these thoughts, you know, just in case I thought I was losing my mind, the second half happened, which confirmed to me, I felt like I was totally losing all my marbles, because a voice started to speak inside me, a clear voice, a woman's voice speaking in English. And this woman began by telling me the story of my life to me. And it was first of all a very different perspective, very, very different. And she told me that many of the bad things that had happened to me were blessings to me. And she was sort of a woman that you couldn't argue with, you know, not just, I don't mean because she was bossy, but because there was a logic to her that was irrefutable. Okay, so when she said these were blessings, I just thought, yeah, they were, but you know, I'd never seen it like that. and then she also told me all of my sins, every single sin. So from the age of 0 till 20, which is how old I was then. And she did it kindly and gently, very charitably, patiently. But she took pains to show me why my sins were sins. Okay, so for example, sometimes she even told me things I had done which were good, but I'd done for completely wrong reasons. So she would say, do you remember when you did such and such, or said such and such, but you only did this to be noticed or to be praised? Okay, so things like that she would tell me. There was a great emphasis on sins of the tongue, speaking too much, betraying people's confidences, talking too much about other people, gossip, slander, all these real heavy emphasis on such things. You know, they're very, very serious. Slander, very, very serious. It's up there next to murder, you know, because you're destroying someone's reputation. And when she finished, she said, "You are happy because you have seen me." And I thought, oh, it's the young girl on the mountain. So I said, yes, I'm very happy. Who are you? And she said, I am your mother, the mother of God. I want you to tell everyone you meet that I am their mother and that I love them. Now, you know, when she spoke, it's like I could feel what she meant behind the words. For almost everything she said, I understood in what sense she meant. Right at the beginning, I said a lot of silly things to her. You know, I said, I can't wait to tell all my friends about this. And she said, do not begin to imagine that you deserve to see me. God gives grace as He chooses. Okay. And then, so right at the beginning, she said, don't worry about this. You don't deserve it. You know. And then she said, I want you to the day will come when you will regret ever having seen me. Now this is very early in the conversation, and I was shocked, and I said, this is the best day of my life. And she said, the day will come when you will deny ever having seen me. Now when she said it like that twice, now even at that age, at the age of 20, I remember at the time I was thinking about the prediction of Peter's denial, and I thought that doesn't work out too well. So good rule of thumb is quit while you're behind, right? So I didn't protest. And all of that came true, as she said, you know, because within 2-3 years of that, I was at medical school in Leeds, and I was the only person on campus, I think, who was bored. I was bored by everything that young people can get up to. And because everything in life is boring compared to Our Lady. You know, because seeing her makes living very difficult. And I don't advise anyone to desire such things. If it's up to God if He chooses to give you this grace, but it's not wait till you die. Wait till it's the proper time. So I found it very difficult, and also I couldn't tell anyone that I had seen Our Lady. No one would believe me. Also, I had no desire to tell anyone. It felt like it would cheapen it telling anyone. And so one day I remember I said to her, because I thought seeing her turned me to a freak of some kind, I said to her, I wish I had never seen you. And as soon as I said it, I thought, oops, it's happened, as she said. And then in terms of seeing her, I don't know about Scotland. I think in Scotland when I lived there for the novitiate, I don't remember talking too much about Medjugorje, but I think most people are very open to it. And of course you have Craig Lodge and the example of the McFarlane Barrows and a lot of good Scottish Catholics. I remember going to Carfin and all that and seeing the faith, But in England, I remember certainly Catholics would laugh at Medjugorje. They would say mega forgery rather than Medjugorje. And I was such a coward that I would not tell them the truth, And I was too much of a coward. So I would go along with them. So I think that fulfills the second part, about denying. But she had said, when you turn again, you must hold firm to my son Jesus. Now her language is a bit like the Gospels, but Jesus telling Peter to when you turn again, you must strengthen your brothers. But strengthen your brothers. But she said, when you turn again, you must hold firm to Jesus. She didn't say hold firm to Medjugorje, but hold firm to Jesus. And at that point, she showed me a vision of the future of the church, a series of visions. They were, I don't know, maybe 7 to 9 of them. And she said, you will forget much of this. And I said, no, I won't. And immediately after, I forgot. They were almost all bar one. They were good things. And I remember during the lockdown when we had time, and there weren't that many pilgrims coming. I remember sitting down and thinking, I remember the emotions of what she showed me, and I felt an elation seeing them. And I was trying to think, what would have made me elated at the age of 20 about the future of the church? And the only things I could come up with, I thought, okay, the unification of all Christians in one Catholic church, the conversion of England, Russia, China, those kind of things might have got me excited, but I don't know if that's what it was about, because I forgot. There's only one of the things was a bad thing, and that I remember, which is that a time will come when almost every Catholic in the whole world will be ashamed of Jesus and ashamed of his words. And led by their leaders, they will turn their backs on him. And they will say that they're too advanced, they're too sophisticated, they've progressed beyond. And this is, I don't know, old hat or something. And it will happen very suddenly as well, very suddenly. Almost the whole world, the whole Catholic world, almost, will show that they were never really Catholic to begin with. And it is a frightening thing. When she showed me that, I said to her, to Our Lady, I said, Blessed Mother, please let my parents die before this happens. I don't know why. I mean, it was the first thing that came into my heart, because it was so horrible. I thought, I don't want my parents to live through that. And Our Lady kept quiet. I presume the answer was yes, And my mom, my dad passed away a year and 2 months ago. My mom passed away 8 months ago. And I never told him I prayed for such a thing. It's not very, very edifying to be told your son prayed for your death, but I suppose now that they've gone, this thing, whatever it is, maybe it's closer. But I don't know what it is. She made me forget. Then I told her all of my problems, and she said to me, give your heart to Jesus, pray with a firm faith, surrender your life to Jesus. Like that, this threefold response. And give your heart to Jesus, pray with a firm faith, surrender your life to Jesus. Now, at the time, I remembered thinking, that's not the answer. You know, but it is the answer to all our problems. It's not the specific answer I wanted, but it is the actual solution to everyone's problems, not just mine. I wanted to see her again, and I didn't know how to arrange that, so I said to her, I said, "Blessed Mother, I'd very much like to die now, please." Because I thought it'd be marvelous, I could just drop dead and go with her, because she's so beautiful, you know. And she said, "Would you not like to live a bit longer to help me?" Now, when she said a bit longer, I knew she meant anything between 9 days and 90 years. And to help me is the one part that she did not explain. She never explained that bit, because she never asked me to become a priest or to become a religious. And I knew a question like that, you have to say yes. So, but I was reluctant, so I said to her, "All right then, but you'd better make sure it's worth my while." That's exactly how I phrased it, you know, because I was a bit, not fed up, but I was just so disappointed at the thought of having to live, to carry on living. And when I said that, she laughed, which is a bit unexpected. She has a beautiful laugh. When I'm asked about it, I describe it as, it's like a sound that clears the cobwebs out of your soul. I don't know how to describe it, but a very clear laugh, straight from the heart. And then when she laughed, I thought, oh, I shouldn't have said that. And then she took control of the whole conversation and did all the talking. She spoke about many things, but they don't concern anyone else. She asked me if I was willing to suffer for her son Jesus. And I knew it was important. I knew she wanted me to say yes, and I was also willing. At the time, certainly I was willing. And I said yes, and she told me exactly where my greatest sufferings would come from. And she told me many things. She gave me certain gifts to shape the kind of person I must become. So one is, she said, "You will always remain very small." No, she meant metaphorically. No, and again, I don't know, you know, you're recording me and putting me on your channel, but this is a gift from her Immaculate Heart that somehow I will never be, I don't know, too big somehow. Okay, and I couldn't care less about being a celebrity or a personality or anything like that. The second gift is a gift I must increase in more and more, which is the gift of not caring what people say about me, whether it's good or bad. This is a gift that every cleric needs, because the greatest temptation of the clergy is the temptation to be loved, no matter what. And we will sell out Jesus, we'll betray him, betray our fellow clergy, just to be loved, to be adored. This is a great, great weakness among many, many clerics. And it's the greatest temptation of the clergy. The other gifts, I don't have permission to speak about them, and they don't concern anyone else. Well, for the time being. And there's some other bits I'm forgetting now. She told me that people would believe me because I would be an unlikely source. That's how she phrased it now. I thought, what are you saying? You know, it's like, in the conversation, it's like she insulted me many times, you know. Like at the beginning when she said that I didn't deserve it, you know. God gives grace as he chooses. And that I would end up regretting and denying this experience. And then she adds this near the end, you know, that I was an unlikely source. But the only reason I even repeat this story is because of the line she said, "Tell everyone you meet that I am their mother and that I love them." She is immediate and personal to every single person, whether they see her or not. That's not important. And if Our Lady loves us like that, we have to think, how does God love us? Passionately, intensely. And I'm not one of those kind of liberal, God loves you as you are, stay as you are. No, God loves you so much, He doesn't want you to stay there. He wants to bring you into His bosom. God loves us so much. And even actually, I'd say even for the so-called already converted, there's a lack of motivation for many people. The few times that I've watched, before Lent began, I looked at a few videos of Catholics recommending what you could do for Lent. And I just thought, oh no. Many of them seem to see praying the rosary as an extraordinary effort that they might make for Lent or October, and then they'll pray just 1/3 of the rosary. I mean the rosary that Our Lady gave Saint Dominic, joyful, sorrowful, and glorious. I'm not dissing the luminous mysteries now. I'm just, the original rosary. They'll pray one set of mysteries and think that this is a big deal, or or giving up chocolate for Lent is a great sacrifice or something, or not eating meat on Fridays. And I have to admit, I'm so far removed from that world, now. And when I look at that and I think, really? That's it? With fasting, for example, I think Catholic fasting now, remember canon law prescribes the minimum. So Good Friday and Ash Wednesday, you can have one full meal and then 2 little collations which added together must add up to another meal. And my Jewish friend, he said, oh, you Catholics, when you say fast, you mean you don't eat in between meals. Catholic fasting now in the West is a joke. The Indian Catholics, they fast for Lent, there's no meat for all of Lent, even Sundays, and it's only 1 meal a day. And that's the ancient fast that all of us used to keep. Yeah. All of us. And I think many of us can do that. We should make an effort.
I remember even yesterday, I've heard it before as well, but you said yesterday, and I was saying this to my wife beforehand, so you confirmed it, the Gaelic or Gaelic, whatever you prefer, the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what they mean.
Yes, that's right. And Scottish Gaelic as well is the same, because it comes from Old Irish.
What are the words again? I always forget.
Okay, well in Irish, Jacadian for Wednesday, day of the first fast. I'm trying to think what it is in Scottish Gaelic. It's very similar. Jacadian, I think, something like that.
I remember a Jane word.
And then Friday, Jehenia. Originally Jehenia Dithin, the day of the last fast, the end fast. And in Scottish, Jardoon, I think.
Right.
Wait a minute, is that right? No, Jehunia or something.
I know I would say something like that.
Jehunia. And then Thursdays, the day between the 2 fasts, Jardi, or in Jardoon in Scottish.
But it shows you the roots, the historic roots of our ancestors in Ireland and Scotland at least.
They made an effort to rename the days of the week. Because we have, in Old Irish, there were other names for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before that, Due Ath, Due Triath, or whatever, things like that. And then they renamed it, the monks renamed it, Due Cadoin. And Thursday, such a mouthful, because initially it was Due Edith Oiniv, the day between the 2 fasts, and that contracts to Jardine.
It shows you why Wednesdays and Fridays. I mean, even there, the roots go back, what people were doing as part of faith.
Yes.
Long before our time.
Because of yesterday and tomorrow, Spy Wednesday and Good Friday. That's why we fast on these 2 days. Throughout the whole year, we fast every Wednesday and Friday, unless a solemnity lands on those days. And when it does, if it lands on a Wednesday, then we fast on the Tuesday. That's the custom here that we keep. But yeah, Wednesday because of the betrayal by Judas, spy Wednesday, and Friday, the day of the Lord's Passion and Death.
Yeah.
So, and this is a fast that Our Lady herself did, because, we have that document, the Didache, written maybe as early as AD 50, where it just takes it for granted. It says, you shall not fast with the hypocrites, you shall fast on Wednesdays and Fridays. The hypocrites, the Pharisees, they fast Monday and Thursday. So this Wednesday, Friday fast is a fast that Our Lady herself did. And here in Medjugorje, she asked for that. Because all the Eastern Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox churches and the Assyrian Church and the Eastern Catholic churches, all of them fast Wednesday, Friday. Except in Eastertide and, if a solemnity falls on it. But yeah, they fast.
A couple of things, I want to get back to what you're saying about the temptation of the priests for people to love them and that, but before that, there's been a special grace that's happened in your life from our Blessed Mother, but here we are years later. You're now in Medjugorje, have been for 8 years now?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's probably been part of her plan all along. Providence, at least with God's providence, but 8 years in Medjugorje. I've only ever came a week at a time. I don't know why I don't do longer. I keep meaning to. But I was just speaking to a couple of people I befriended last time I was here. I said, years ago you heard all these supernatural stories, all these grace from the sun to the rosaries to anything and everything. I said, it's rare to hear anything like that now.
Yes.
I said, I know when you're living here. And again, you're taking people at their word. A couple of things that they shared of others, even.
Father Slavko Babaric, who died in 2000. Like the pilgrims would go up to him and say things like, "Father, I saw the spinning sun," or whatever, and he would say to them, "That's your problem, not mine." He just had no time for this kind of.
But what do you see? The transfer. Do you still see a lot, like the confessionals, the prayer? I know they're so busy with people coming and going all the time.
I see a lot of conversions, a lot. Too many to be accounted for by any other cause. All the time, non-stop. I don't know what's going on. Well, I do know what's going on. I think I know what's going on. But it is astounding to me. Back home, back in the UK, if someone had confessed and said, I haven't been to confession in 20 years or 30 years, I would have been excited. Here, 40, 50 years is normal. My record, I think, is 63 or 68. Something like that, which is extraordinary. But you hear a lot of that. And I keep wondering, why do they wait to come here? They should go as soon as they can, but I guess the conversion seems to happen here, when they're here. There was no prior intention to go to confession, or a great reluctance or great difficulty for them, and that's somehow overcome here by God's grace. So we see a lot of that. We see a lot of conversions, things that are just humanly impossible. There's so many stories, so many examples of this. I don't want to give anyone's identity away, so just in generic terms, I remember, quite often people come to the coastline here, the Croatian coast, Dubrovnik and Makarska and the island of Hvar, for parties. I think young people go there for that. Or Dubrovnik because of Game of Thrones or something. It's a beautiful crusader city, but now it's famous because of Game of Thrones. So they'll come there, and for some strange, bizarre reason, end up here. Either they were offered an excursion, an afternoon excursion into Bosnia, into this place, or quite often, it'd be like the grandmother. These young people turn up here saying, "Oh, my nana's always been talking about this place, and I wanted to come here and take a photo and send it to her." So they'll turn up here, and then they'll see all these huge queues for confession. Now, actually, maybe that should be one of the signs and miracles of Medjugorje, the queue, because if you can get Italians to queue, that has to be a miracle. I'm going to be crucified by the Italians. But they see that, and quite often I've heard from these young party people, they said, I didn't intend to come to confession, but I came, I saw the queue and I thought, I got to join. And they end up making a good confession and a real conversion of life, or at least the beginnings of it. Yeah. So there's that as well. And it's very powerful. There's so many examples of that. A lot of people coming here and then ending up in recovery, from their addictions.
Chinaklo and things like that.
Yes, the Chinaklo community, but also a lot of others who would not be suitable for Chinaklo, probably because they're too old or something, but seeking sobriety and prayerfulness.
It's the heart, it's the triumph in a way, isn't it, when they get the conversion of heart. People might be looking for signs and wonders. People might say like miracles have happened, like authentic miracles, but it's always the heart, I believe, more and more. That's where God's focus is.
I have to admit, despite my Medjugorje conversion, once I became a Dominican and as a priest, I would downplay a lot of things. I believed in all these things in theory. As a parish priest, I introduced extra adoration. We had, I think it was 3 times a week at that parish in Leicester, and we had a perpetual novena on Saturdays. That was the Singaporean thing in me. And what else? I had all kinds of Divine Mercy Chaplet before Mass and all that sort of thing. That I had no problems with devotions. I love devotions. I think they're great. But I know a lot of priests struggle with them. Not all, but many. And I don't know why. And I have to admit, I had got to the stage where I believed in all the right things, orthodoxy with a small o, and orthopraxy with a small o, and devotional life, and decent liturgy. And my bishop had me saying the old Mass when I was parish priest. I learned the Tridentine rite, and then later Pope Benedict said that religious should stick to their own rites. So I learned the Dominican rite and offered that. We offered it every day in our church in Leicester. And people would come, loads of people came. All these things, but there was still something missing. There's like an underpinning, a heart to it all that was missing. Because, to motivate yourself to do all these things is very difficult. You can believe everything in theory and know it's the right thing, like adoration and rosary and all that. But to make yourself do it is very difficult. And I think a lot of priests would agree with me, and a lot of religious. But Medjugorje gave me a second conversion, even as a priest. Because I received a miracle here. I was cured of depression here in Medjugorje back in 2010. I had this depression for 9 months, from January till September. And it was awful, terrible, terrible time. I was a parish priest at the time. And I shouldn't speak about those days. It was awful. And one of my brothers was very worried about me, and he took me, when I say brothers, a Dominican, he took me to Walsingham in January, which is a terrible time to go. Everything was shut. But, so if you wanted to eat breakfast, you had to drive 10 miles out at least. But nothing happened in Walsingham. I prayed for a cure. My GP put me on antidepressants. They made me very sick. They made me car sick. And I was so depressed that even though I'm a doctor, I don't know what it was that I took. Because I was so depressed, I just took them without looking. I don't remember looking at the label or seeing what the name of the drug was. And I suppose by narrowing down my side effects, I could narrow it down, find out what it was. Or many GPs could tell me actually straight away. But, and then I signed up for counselling on the NHS. Well, I think there was funding shortages, so the counsellor quit. And then, so I didn't have any therapy on the NHS. My GP, it was a nice enough chap, and he said to me, "Father, I'm not surprised you're depressed because your life is so awful. You know, the shape of your life and what's going on." And then I came to Medjugorje, and I was desperate by then, September 2010. And I went to an apparition on Thursdays. There's an apparition at one of the visionaries' homes that's only for priests, because Thursday, the day of the priesthood, because of today, Monday, Thursday. Okay. And I went along, and I was in a terrible frame of mind. You know, and I watched this visionary come through and kneel down. And I remember I just said to Our Lady, I said, "I don't care about anything else. I said, I believe in you, and you must do something for me, because otherwise I will need to resign as parish priest. And if I did, then all the good I'd done would be undone, just like that. And all the bad stuff would come flooding back in. All the things that the bishop and the provincial had asked me to get rid of, which I did, to my cost." And the next morning when I woke up, the depression was gone. Just like that, you know, when you have depression, it's when you wake up in the morning, you have a few seconds of forgetfulness. You know, you forget, and it's like being normal. And then you remember, and it's like this grey curtain comes crashing down, and everything loses its color. Everything is bleached. You don't smell anything anymore. Sounds are dull. Nothing's exciting. Everything's terrible, awful. You know, and that morning when I woke up, you know, I had the forgetfulness, you know, and then I thought, okay, any minute now, the grey curtain will come, but nothing happened. And then I thought, okay, it's because I'm here, there's sunshine, there's blue skies, there's a nice Mediterranean diet, you know, I'm eating grilled fish and spinach, no wonder I'm happy, you know, olive oil for my arteries. And I thought as soon as I get back to the UK, I'll be miserable again. But I went back and nothing happened. And I waited a whole month because I was terrified. But it didn't come back. It didn't come back. And that was through Our Lady's intercession here in Medjugorje. But also, you know, all sorts of miracles I've seen. I think I always count the miracles of conversion as higher, more important than physical healings. I know people fixate on physical healings. There was a lady I prayed over 2 years ago, in September 2 years ago, 22, who was dying of cancer. She was too poorly to have chemo and radiotherapy. She went for immunotherapy, and that almost killed her. And she came here, she was really on her last legs. Her name is Maureen, from Pennsylvania, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I have to say that because in the past I've said she was from Massachusetts, and she saw the video and said, "No, Father, I'm from Pennsylvania." Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And two priests told her for some reason to come and find me. And I don't know why. And she asked me to pray over her. And I was praying over her, and the thought occurred to me. I thought, oh no, what if she's cured? I know it was phrased as, oh no, because I thought that'll be the end of my life. You know, because there was a real feeling. I thought maybe she could be cured. And you know, I don't have a good track record of healing people, or through my intercession or through my prayers. So I thought, okay, I said explicitly, I said, as a proof to them that Our Lady is truly appearing here in Medjugorje, let her be healed. Because it wasn't mostly about Medjugorje. For me, it was like trying to escape the crowds, you know, people running after me and things like that, going crazy or something, you know, Beatlemania, a religious version of Beatlemania. So that's why I said that, as a proof to them that Our Lady is truly here in Medjugorje. And she was healed. Within hours, she said she felt better. Her husband and I just thought, you know, poor deluded thing, or whatever, you know. She went home, the cancer disappeared, all the tumors disappeared, her bloods became normal, and she gained 40 pounds because she had wasted away. The cachexia was so bad, and now she's very well.
It's
Still in the care.
Intercessory prayer, yeah.
Yeah, but I said, as a proof to them, that Our Lady is truly here. So it's Our Lady's intercession, not mine. And so those kind of miracles do happen, but I think the conversions are far more important to me because they're harder, much harder to achieve, because you have to melt a frozen heart sometimes. I don't have to, the Holy Spirit has to.
Yeah, well, on that note with the Holy Spirit and based on that topic, I think that zeal that I can relate to once upon a time in the heart where it was so on fire, you want everyone to convert, not just about Medjugorje, but God is real, the Holy Spirit is real. It's not just this cradle Catholic notion of what we do every week by habit. This is a whole, the scales have just dropped. And it's like, maybe the honeymoon period as such, but when you go through like a community or when you do some studies, there's some good Catholic courses out there, like some communities use now. So there's a bit of intellectual side, which is very much faith-based.
Mm-hmm.
They might use certain quotes of catechism, of scripture, St. Thomas and other saints or doctors of the church. And I think that's the big thing that I really found a new lease of life recently when hearing about it. Point being is, see if it's the case we're truly faithful, living that sacramental life that Our Lady is focusing us to through her messages. We're still called to evangelise as lay people, as priests. So if the Holy Spirit wants to do it, He moves as He wills. So it could be you, it could be me, it could be the 15-year-old teenager who's devout.
Of course.
And we just need to pray and ask, and if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
where He wills.
Yeah. Sometimes people attribute it to just some saints. Padre Pio would be a great example of the countless miracles that came through him. And then you think, you've heard some stories like the one you've shared, or a couple others I've heard through Father Yozo in the early days here, or any saints as such. But it's not just for priests or clergy or these saints, because we're all called to sainthood, but we are all children of God. So with the right church teaching that might be there, it's waiting to be found. I know some people do coursework, and there's some from America, I forget the name of it, but it's based in catechism, teachings of the saints, scripture, and it's like, 'cause I think I always associate that too much with different Christian denominations. We get big platforms and cable TV and things, but the Catholic Church seems to be a bit more on the doer side of that, as we say in Scotland. But when you find these pockets of really fired up faithful Catholics that are living the sacraments,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to get out there with that evangelical spirit, or the apostolic faith, we should say, when we do that creed, I mean, we should be getting out there like the apostles to preach the gospel, and if the Holy Spirit wills as He moves, to back it up with miracles or whatever, or signs. It's not that we just expect it or hope for it, but it's the fact that we should take confidence that if we're doing God's will, He's always there to back us up.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is that right to say that anyone could be a prayer, an intercessor prayer asking for God to heal someone?
Absolutely. Yeah, those kind of things, they're related, I think, to the gift of baptism. I mean, these gifts that people think of as more fantastic, like miracles or prophecy or something, they are among the least of the gifts. These charismata, they do not make us personally holy.
Mm.
So me saying that I saw Our Lady, that doesn't make me holy at all. The only thing that makes us holy is, the measure of holiness is charity, caritas, the divine love in us. That's the only way to measure holiness, sanctifying grace, in other words, So, I mean, these days of Holy Week and in the Triduum, Caiaphas prophesies, the high priest Caiaphas says, you know nothing at all, it is better for one man to die than for the whole nation to perish. He prophesies correctly, but he's a wicked man. You could be a worker of miracles or a prophet, but still be a wicked person and maybe not even going to heaven. You know, you could be a visionary and not be a good person. That's a terrifying thing. You know, that's why we should focus on the important things. Charity, to live the virtues, to genuinely be converted. What you're talking about, it is hard to motivate. We sort of skirted around this a bit. I guess I haven't found a proper way to articulate this. But if I had to, I would say, I would like every bishop and priest to fall in love with Jesus. And I know that's sort of like emotive language and sounds a bit wishy-washy. I don't mean it in that sense. But I mean that, you know, if you really... Every cleric surely can remember there was a moment in his life when he did experience something like this. Like a falling in love with Jesus, you know, and thought, yes, I want to follow the Lord and I want to serve him somehow. And we need to rediscover that in our lives, because it's so easy to just become a bureaucrat, a pen pusher, attending meetings, become a party man, towing the line, don't rock the boat, you know, and just repeat the same trite pap that everyone else comes up with, you know, to tick the boxes.
Mm.
And that is very soul destroying, because, and also I think it makes us cynical. And we need to rediscover why we joined this life in the first place. And also, Jesus is real. We have to stand before Jesus one day, and he will be our judge. And we must give him an account of what we did as stewards of his mysteries. We must render him an account. And I think maybe too many of us don't actually think in those terms. We seem to think we're doing God a favor, you know, oh yes, I'm being nice to people. And, you know, yeah, we can bend the laws, break the laws, you know, whatever. And you get all this nonsense about juxtaposing as though pastoral and canonical are two different things. No, the true pastoral solution is the canonical solution. This is what I was taught at the Angelicum, and it's true. The pastoral solution is the canonical solution. They're not two divergent things where pastoral is breaking the laws. No, not at all. No. Lying to people is not charity.
No. And I think I can relate to that as a laity. I would say the spiritual struggles, the mental struggles that have been the hardest, I called it the darkest years of my life, stem from seminary and the years after. Maybe I went over with some level of naivety. That spiritual zeal eventually came into a bit of maturity through hardship. So I see how God's put me through the grinder to get me in a better place, and thanks be to God he has. And I think again I've turned back. I think after you get through that way, the turning back is when it becomes real. You know, you're going with Peter, and he is my confirmation saint, so I think there might be something to be learned in that. But anyway,
those are good examples, I think. You know, I was blessed with many examples of holy priests among the diocesan clergy who became my friends, you know, because I'm not saying they aren't holy priests, also in the Dominicans, of course, but in the diocesan, it was a way of seeing the priesthood quite different from what I was used to seeing, you know, as a religious. But to see many holy priests among them, this was very, very edifying for me, really, and important. And I think every seminarian needs to see that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was teaching at Oscott, Usho had just closed, and they sent the lads from Usho down to us, to Oscott, and the dean, the rector, I forget the titles, the rector at the time said that the Usho lads had injected a robust masculinity into Oscott College. Well, I knew what he meant, because they were like very ordinary lads, but prayerful, devout, and they had suffered as well. Those lads had really suffered in Ashore beforehand, and then they came down to Oscott. I know that because I went to speak to them in Ashore before Ashore was shut, and saw what was going on. But we need those examples of a robust masculinity, of a joyful Catholicism, of clerics who are on fire and committed, and not just going through the motions and ticking the boxes.
And I think that has infected so many, and I think it's easy to see the bad stuff being the focus.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would say as well for some priests is the laity know how to share their stories and their experiences, good or bad. And just last week someone was telling me that 3 separate people have came to him saying about the priest says this in the confessional, saying, oh, that's not a sin, don't worry, or that's not a sin, don't worry. And we're talking about things from sex out of wedlock to whatever else. And they feel scandalised knowing that they've went to the priest for that.
Yeah.
My cousin went to a priest in Scotland after making a half an hour drive one Saturday afternoon, and she was like, bless me Father, for I have sinned. It's been 17 years since my last confession. He basically, I don't have time for 17 years, love. I'll absolve you, and gave her the absolution. And I was like, go to another priest because you need to say the sins. And again, that ripple effect is the scandal. What would you say? I mean, again, priests might not, might have dried up or something.
It's also a scandal in the biblical sense of scandal, a stumbling block, because you're making the little ones think, oh well, it isn't a serious sin, it doesn't matter, which is a lie. It's a great disservice. It's a bit like, I don't know, what would someone do if they said, I haven't had a shower in 17 years, or I haven't got time to wash you, let me just wave my hands over you.
Yeah.
It's people have the right to make a good, complete confession. They have in the sacraments, they want to meet Jesus face to face. I think it's when the priest thinks it's all about him that those kind of things happen, and they're being nice and bringing people to Jesus by being gentle. But that's not charity. I mean, we should be gentle, but it's not charity to just lie to them.
Yeah. I remember one priest came with us as spiritual director for the week here during the youth festival years ago. He was a new priest, he was a Franciscan, so he was ready to get in and start doing the sacraments. It was his first year.
Yeah.
We never saw him, I hardly saw him. He was addicted to the confessional. Morning, noon and night, he was like 15 hours a day, kid you not. And he just came back, he says every one of them are life-changing conversions.
Yes.
He was addicted. And I think that's the big thing of conversion here, it's the confessional of the world.
Yeah. And when I was first coming here as a priest, so a much younger priest, I think it was like 6 hours every day, at least. And it was 6 because after that I needed to go to the loo. I couldn't sit there for ages. But yeah, and like you said, non-stop, deep, life-changing conversions, confessions. Extraordinary.
And do you find with the 8 years that you've been here, with the experience you've had as layman as well as priest, and then coming here to Medjugorje for 8 years, things settled down, I'd imagine, if they weren't already for you, but do you find it's done something like the grace that's here, the witness that's here, as a man, as a priest? Do you really see something's excelled your spiritual life, or any experiences to the point that if you weren't here, would you still have had that?
Yeah, I don't think I would have had that if I hadn't been here. Yes, and life-changing for me as well. I don't like dramatic language, although we talked about conversions and life-changing and all that. But I have to admit, I do feel Our Lady saved my priesthood as well, by bringing me to Medjugorje, or through Medjugorje. And saying, I do feel that, certainly.
Yeah, I think when you made that prayer to her, like you were saying, she just gave you some special attention because she loves the priests. And they say this is the bridge to the triumph in some places, like it's the priests, the conversions. that's going to be the bridge to the triumph of the Immaculate Heart.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Apparently so.